everybody, and welcome back to Hanging with Hastings. Two dudes in the basement. We got a really special show for you. But first of all, welcome to my buddy Tommy. Tommy Joyce is back.
Love being here.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. I love that you love being here because this is your house.
Yeah.
So, anyway, before we get started with our video, if you guys would do me the favor and give us a like and a subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you can get notified anytime we make new videos. Tonight is going to be really a special video for us here because we are going to be picking our top 5 albums of all time. And I'm sorry I did this to you, Tom.
I said he likes to do this to torture me mentally. This was really challenging. I thought the picking 5 best movies or favorite movies is difficult. This is far more challenging.
Yeah, well, it is for me too because we have special rules for this one that we would only allow one artist. Like you couldn't, like if I had my way, my top 5 could be 5 Elton John albums or 5 Bruce Springsteen albums or
Beatles,
or the Beatles, so. But we wanted only one artist in a top 5, so that made it difficult. Yep. You put a little bit more pressure on yourself because you didn't want to do live albums or greatest hits,
right.
And I do have a live album in my top 5, and I felt I had to get. I mean, there are certain live albums in history. Yeah. Johnny Cash, maybe his 2 best albums of all time are Folsom and San Quentin.
Right.
And we said Kiss would probably not be Kiss without Kiss Alive. And who would care about Peter Frampton if it wasn't for Peter Frampton Comes Alive? Right. So there were some great live albums in the world, and my list is going to have one of them. I also really quick want to mention my wife, as I was running out the door, made a list of her top 5. So Diana wanted me to share this with you. So before we get going, Diana's top 5, my wife Diana, her top 5 albums of all time are number 5, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. Number 4, Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill. Number 3, Capitol sings Cole Porter.
Nice.
Number 2, Tom Petty, Wildflowers. And number 1, something by Fish. I don't know. She loves her fish. Yeah. So anyway, we're going to get started right away. And I know this was torture on you, Tommy, but I'm going to give you number 5.
All right. For number 5, I included one of my favorite bands of all time. They're more known for, obviously, their live shows. I talk about the Grateful Dead. And, the Grateful Dead is a band that really creates a symbiosis with the crowd that I think is unmatched in music. And those of you who have been to, ever had the opportunity to see a Grateful Dead show know what I'm talking about. The relationship, interplay between the band and the crowd is really something special. So I know they're mostly known for their live music. And,
right.
And they have literally dozens of live albums been released over the years. If you talk about, the taper ones, there are literally hundreds of them out there. So I wanted to stick with the studio album, though. And I'm going to go for number 5 is released in 1970, Working Man's Dead.
Working Man's Dead, classic.
It's a great album. They released 2 great albums in 1970, American Beauty and Working Man's Dead. And, it's a hard album to classify. It's bluegrass, it's folk, it's country, all infused with that special Grateful Dead vibe. It's got some of their, in my opinion, some of the greatest work. Uncle John's Band, it's just a fantastic song. New Speedway Boogie, Cumberland Blues. As the kids would say, it's banger after banger, just one song after another. And I've been listening to it nonstop since I was probably 14 years old. I never get tired of it. So I'm going to go with Working Man's Dead by the Grateful Dead, number 5.
I have always tried to get into, and it's kind of funny that Diana had her fish and then you went the Dead, so a lot of stoner music out there. Yeah. Anyway, I've tried to get into the Dead, and I like some of those, and that's one of my albums that has songs that I like by the Dead. So that's probably their most commercial. Where if you don't go to the concerts and stuff, you can still appreciate it. So good pick at number 5. My number 5 is going to be an album, and this was very tough. God, it's so. We were talking about how hard it is to just nail it down to 5 albums, but I have to say that when this album came out, I listened to it nonstop all summer long. And I listened to it all winter long, and I still listen to it at least once a month to this very day. And I'm talking about Simon and Garfunkel's Live at Central Park. It was their reunion. Paul was just coming off his One Trick Pony tour, and they had such an amazing band and such an amazing list of songs.
Yeah.
And I actually think that the version of Late in the Evening on the live album blows away the studio version. And I think you could see that on a lot of live albums. That's one of the reasons I didn't want to exclude live albums from the list, because I just think some of the versions are, like I said, Late in the Evening, Bridge Over Troubled Water on this album is just amazing. And I love how Art Garfunkel lent his voice to American Tune.
Yeah.
And
That's
just
a
a
great
great
version.
album.
It's a great song, and that's a beautiful version.
So I just, it was one of those albums that I used to listen to when it first came out. We would have these parties that my band was just getting started, and we would practice until like about 6 o'clock. Then our party Saturday night would start, and we would be drinking playing quarters and stuff, and listening to loud music. And then when we wanted to come down at the end of the night, that was the album that we would just turn on.
I remember watching it, and I think it was HBO broadcast.
HBO, yeah.
It was fantastic. Yeah.
Paul Simon's really good friends with what's his name? He started Lorne Michaels, who started Saturday Night Live, and he produced that video. So my number 5, Simon and Garfunkel, Live in Central Park. Great album.
For number 4, here's a great artist who produced a lot of fantastic music in the 70s. And in fact, 1980, Rolling Stone named him the artist of the decade of the 70s, and it wasn't Elton John. So that might be a little ruffle some feathers there. But it's
son of a...
it's Neil Young. In his 1978 release, Rust Never Sleeps.
Oh, great album.
Which I just think is a phenomenal album. Song after song. He Thrasher, which he wrote about his breakup with Crosby, Stills and Nash. It's got Powderfinger and Pocahontas. And what I think one of the great underrated and unloved songs the last 50 years, a great song called Sail Away.
Oh, yes,
which is a fantastic song. It's an album, it's just infused with this idea of it's new beginnings. It's looking to the future, looking at the past, and then trying to move forward. And I just think it's a great album.
Yeah, good choice. Mine would be, if I had a Neil Young, it would probably be Harvest.
Harvest, yeah.
But I also love Freedom, which came out with Rockin' the Free World, and that. But yeah, great album. So great choice. We're getting through this. This is what's hard about it, is as we go to number 4 here. I love John Mellencamp, and none of his albums are in my top 5. I love Bob Seger, and none of and Bob Dylan. There's so many. But my number 4 is going to be Tom Petty, and I had a fight. When we talked about the struggle to put this list together, I absolutely love Damn the Torpedoes and Southern Accents and Wildflowers. Some of my favorite albums of all time. But I'm going with his first solo album, Full Moon Fever, which came out in 1989. And from Free Fallin', I Won't Back Down, to his cover of I Feel a Whole Lot Better When You're Gone. Just so many, from every single song on that album is just a classic. And that's one of the things I love about Tom Petty, is you can hear a Tom Petty song for the first time and feel like you've heard it a million times. They all sound like instant classics. And in this case, I really think there's not a stinker on the album. I just love the zombie, even the non-hit songs like Zombie Zoo, and
saw him a couple times. Great shows both times I saw him.
And that was one of the
really good concerts.
Unfortunate things in my life. He's one of the few that I never got to see. It just didn't line up for me. But he is my number 3 favorite of all time, artist wise, and
classic American rock and roll.
That album right there, and that's what I put Seeger and Mellencamp and all them into that heartland rock and roll, and in my opinion, Petty is the best of that. Is with those guys, and that's why he got the number 4 spot, Full Moon Fever. So we're on to number 3.
All right, for number 3, I picked this album comes out at or near the top of a lot of people's listing of best albums ever, and I think it's very well deserved. It is from 1971, Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On."
What's Going On?
It's really a brilliant piece of music, and when he came to Berry Gordy at Motown with the idea of this, Berry was not happy at all.
Right, anti-war. Yeah.
They had made, a lot of money and produced a lot of hits with, singles, great stuff. The Motown sound, Supremes, Temptations, and just really straight ahead. Boy loves girl,
Boy and girl, yep.
And he came and said, "I want to do something different with a lot more meaning." And he produces What's Going On, and it's an album that dealt with things that music didn't deal with at the time. It dealt with violence in the inner city, the plight of Vietnam veterans coming home, the ravages of drug addiction, the problems with the environment. And it sounds really grim, but actually the album is just infused with this unbelievable sense of hope, because what he's doing in this album is saying, these are the things that are going on in this society. We can't look away. We have to be honest about them, confront them.
Right.
But ultimately, the theme of the album is we can make a better world and solve these problems with faith in each other and God. And and it was also very at the time, and still today, I would say it's kind of risky to include a lot of religious messages and religious references in popular music. You haven't seen a lot of it over the years. And he was very straightforward in this album. God is love, save the children. The message is very clear that, again, without faith in each other and God, we're not going to solve the problems that face the world. It's a continuous piece of music, and it's just absolutely brilliant. I find myself listening to it all the time.
I think the greatest artists of all time probably do have that message. You see that message, the religious overtones in a lot of their work, and that's a great pick. You can't help but think that without that piece of work, Stevie Wonder may not have Just Enough for the City or his songs from a Key of Life album.
Right, exactly.
So a great choice at number 3 for you. Now my number 3 is got a relation to my number 4, which was Tom Petty. But my number 3 album of all time was I remember when the album came out, it wasn't critically acclaimed. It was a huge hit, but some of the critics, I don't think, understood what it was about, and I don't know if they understood the meaning of this album. And I'm talking about the Traveling Wilburys, Volume 1. The meeting between George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison, Tom Petty, and Jeff Lynne. It was just brilliant. And I just listened to this album today.
I think that, unfortunately, at the time, it was dismissed as a gimmick album, to be honest.
And people didn't understand the great songs that were on it. Yeah. I play in my shows, Tweeter and the Monkey Man's in my shows almost all the time.
Who else but Bob Dylan could put a song together?
And you know what?
Composed of Bruce Springsteen
song. And a lot of people don't realize that
brilliant.
It's all Bruce Springsteen songs.
Right.
It was out on Thunder Road and State Trooper. Yeah. So. But they're just handled with care. Just so many.
End of the line.
You're Not Alone Anymore, which was a great Roy Orbison song. Just so many great songs on that album, and they're all catchy, and they all sound great. And the great thing about it is how loose they were. And
they're having fun.
I think the best music is the music where it sounds like the musicians aren't even trying. Right. It's just so natural. Yeah. And reading Tom Petty's biography. When he met George Harrison, who was, the Beatles were a huge influence on him, well, he became like his best friend. And they were like family up until George's death. Yeah. And it had to be an amazing experience for Petty.
3 of them are gone.
And who would have thought Dylan would be one of the only ones left? And there he is. Yeah. But just a brilliant album, just a great album, and I love it so much. Traveling Wilburys, Volume 1. And of course, Volume 3 didn't have the same magic when Roy was gone. Right. Had some good songs on it, but couldn't capture, I think, the magic that was Volume 1. So there you go, my number 3. Oh man, we're getting to number 2. Ooh, we're shooting through this.
Yeah. My number 2 are going to go with, in my opinion, the greatest band of all time is the Beatles, and it was tough.
That's number 2.
Yep, there's a lot of great Beatles albums. I could have put a list together of 5 Beatles albums.
I know
Sgt. Pepper's and White Album and so forth, but I'm going to go with Abbey Road.
My favorite Beatles album.
The Beatles, it was their last album they recorded. Now, Let It Be was released after Abbey Road, but Abbey Road was recorded
Abbey Road is actually the last album.
Right. but it's just a brilliant album, and I like it because all four would get their opportunity to shine, and you got John, come together, and you got George and something, and he's a beautiful. Here Comes the Sun, which I was surprised to learn that's the #1 streamed Beatles song on Spotify.
Really?
Yeah.
Over like Hey Jude?
It is.
Wow.
And it's a great song. But then again, you get to the second side in the medley that kicks off with "You Never Give Me Your Money."
It's
and
amazing.
The way it just builds in intensity right through, Me, Mr. Mustard, all the way to the, fittingly, the end. I don't know if there's ever been, a single piece of music recorded that could top that. It just, that medley is just, it shows the genius of that band. They're just locked in. Even Ringo's given his minute to shine there. His drumming is so on point, and it just builds an intensity. Like I like to listen to that as loud as possible.
Right.
And it's just again, Billy. The Beatles had masterpieces. In my view, that's their ultimate masterpiece.
It is. A lot of people look at Sgt. Pepper, but I agree with you. Abbey Road and God's Honest Truth. That would have been my number 5 album, but I knew you were going to have a Beatles album in there, so I wanted to give you the Beatles. And if I can do a cheap plug here, since you mentioned the Beatles, the next episode of Hanging with Hastings will be a tribute to the Beatles. So that'll be next week, and I'm going to try to get some comments from Tommy because I know you're such a big Beatle fan. I'm going to get some comments from you for that special too. So look for next week, my tribute to the Beatles. So number 1 and 2 were the easiest ones for me, I guess, because they just popped in my head right away. And my number 2 is going to be Born in USA by Bruce Springsteen. I could have picked any one of his first 7 albums.
I agree.
In my number 2 or in my top 5. In my top 10, I could have picked Bruce albums. I love Darkness on the Edge of Town, the River. I love Born to Run. I love Greetings, and I love Incident. The East Street Shuffle, Wild and Innocent, and I love actually as much as I love Born USA. One of the most influential albums in my career and life and songwriting is Nebraska. So I just love, and here's an interesting story. Now, Born USA becomes one of the biggest albums of all time. Michael Jackson released Thriller in '82 and ends up having 7 singles, and which was the most on any album at the time. And then Bruce releases Born USA, which has 7 singles, and really could have had more. If you think about it, No Surrender is not a single, or Bobby Jean, songs like that could have been, almost that entire album could have been a top 10 single. I think maybe the weakest song on it is probably Downbound Train, and other than that, every song, and it's still a good song. Darlington County could have been a hit, but it had that. But here's the interesting thing about it: he recorded most of Born USA at the time that he had Nebraska. In 1982, and he recorded Nebraska in his bedroom on a 4-track recorder, and it was just going to be a demo. And he said one of the things that always he had so much trouble in the studio was teaching the band songs. So he was writing these songs. He was I'll tape them and then I'll give them to the band. And the band tried to record the Nebraska songs, and they couldn't get the same atmosphere that he got, the spooky atmosphere that he got on the bedroom recordings. So meanwhile, while they're trying to figure that out, he goes, I got this song, and it's Born USA. And then it's, Glory Days. And I'm on Fire. And My Hometown. All these songs are just coming out while they're trying to figure out the next album, Nebraska. So finally, little Steven says to Bruce, well, why don't we just release the 4-track? Because that he's been carrying in his back pocket, and it was really hard to get it on, to print it on the album and that, but he did. So I almost think of those 2 albums as connected because they were recorded almost like at the same time. But the integrity of Bruce to having possibly one of the greatest albums ever recorded, the most successful albums of all time. And he holds it off for 2 years because the record label wanted to release another double. And he goes, no, nobody will listen to the acoustic songs. Right. They'll only listen to the rock songs. And he wanted the songs on Nebraska to be heard on their own. So he held off with the biggest album of his career for 2 years. And to me, that's just like the epitome of musical integrity.
It's a great album.
So Born in USA, and I think that was kind of Born in USA was the plateau where all the 6 previous albums led to that.
Right.
You know, Bruce was always what do you call it? Almost a cult figure more
right.
so than a big, huge superstar. And Born in USA finally put him on the mantle and made him the king of rock and roll for that short period in the mid '80s. So number 2, Born in USA. Whew.
All right, my number one was
I got goosebumps.
2 through 5 were challenging, but number 1 I knew right away. Ever since I heard it, probably about 17 when I first heard it, I was just absolutely floored by the songwriting, and it's, in my opinion, not only my favorite album, but I believe it's the best album ever recorded by, in my opinion, the best songwriter in American history. It's from 1975, Blood on the Tracks.
Blood on the Tracks, great. I thought you were going to go Blonde on Blonde.
Yeah, it's just Blood on the Tracks, and it's just Bob in just at his peak form. He just done Desire, another great album.
Yep.
And it just is an album where you listen to the opening track, Tangled Up in Blue, and you just blown away by the songwriting. You think, well, it can't get any better, and it does. And the songwriting, just one song after another, he's just putting out these lyrics that no one else can do it. You know, and you've got songs like you're gonna make me lonesome when you go, and Buckets of Rain, and the other thing about the album is, Bob, sometimes deservedly so, has gotten a lot of, obviously, criticism for his voice over the years.
I love his voice.
His voice on this album is in peak form, and it's fantastic. And when he does, You're a Big Girl Now, his vocal performance, I think, is the best of his career. Just so plaintive. The album is just, the emotions are raw. People can relate to what it's about loss. It's about, trying to find something to hold on to. You got Simple Twist of Fate, which is an incredible exploration of the very complex, feelings associated with the proverbial one-night stand. And it's really just the entire album, in my opinion, is brilliant songwriting. The musicianship is first rate, and I do believe that top to bottom, Blood on the Tracks is the best album ever recorded.
Bob Dylan, and that's the hard thing about this. I did have him in my Traveling Wilburys, but I could have had any number of his albums in my top 5. Like as I mentioned, Blonde on Blonde, Highway 61, Self-Portrait, Nashville Skyline.
Yeah.
And I'll go into Infidels and
fantastic.
Slow Train Coming and Empire Burlesque. I even liked Knocked Out Loaded.
Yeah.
Because it had Brownsville Girl on it.
Right.
I really like.
Yeah.
And I disagree with. I can't listen to his voice now.
Right.
There's video on YouTube of him playing live now, and I can't understand a word he's saying.
It's tough.
But I loved all of his different versions. If you listen to early Bob with his acoustics, where he sounds a lot like Woody Guthrie,
right.
And he has that smoky voice.
And his vocals on his duet on Nashville Morning, with Johnny Cash, Girl from North Country.
Girl from
the North Country. It's fantastic.
Well, that was during the Nashville Skyline period where he had Lay Lady Lay was around there, All Along the Watchtower, I'll Be Your Baby Tonight, songs like that. And if there's a great clip from the Johnny Cash show where he sings I Threw It All Away on there, and my wife said, man, that doesn't sound anything like Bob Dylan. I go, no, he was a chameleon with his voice.
Right.
It changed a little bit with like a Rolling Stone on Highway 61 when he and Maggie's Farm on that Bringing It All Home.
Yep.
And his voice would change, and then a different sounding voice on Slow Train Coming that he had on Infidels.
Yeah.
So we'll hit that one.
Alexa,
That's our
stop.
warning. We did this really good.
2-minute warning.
Yeah, so
go.
I love Bob Dylan, and great choice. He's in my top 5 of all-time artists, and you got to say, if without Bob Dylan, There's no, before him, artists that wrote their own songs in rock and roll were like Buddy Holly and Chuck Berry were boy girl songs, and without Bob Dylan, there's probably not the metamorphosis of the Beatles from "I Want to Hold Your Hand" to "Hey Jude" and
Absolutely.
To everything that they did. So but great pick. And all right, as I go to my number one, before I do, I want to throw in, and I'll give you if you have any honorable mentions. I'm going to throw my honorable mentions of albums. I have to say "Stranger in Town" with Bob Seger. I just love that album. "Scarecrow" by John Mellencamp. So many. I love Kiss. Like it was such an important band for me, and when I was growing up, and those early albums from Kiss Alive, really everything from 1974 to 1978 with Kiss, I loved. From Kiss, "Hotter Than Hell," "Dress to Kill," and then the Kiss Alive and "Destroyer," "Rock and Roll Over," "Love Gun," and the Alive 2 and Double Platinum. I lost track with them after they made the solo albums. And what was the Dynasty when they had the disco? I Was Made for Loving You. By then I had lost track of them after that. And I could care less about stuff from the 80s and all that. So, but I couldn't put them in there. But great. If you do have any honorable mentions.
Asia, Steely Dan. Darkness on the Edge of Town, and The River.
River was I said I could probably pick
that was my number 6, to be honest with you. And I loved Street Survivor by Leonard Skinner. I think it's a great album.
It is a great album.
There's just like you said, there's just we could do this all. Sticky Fingers, Beggars Banquet.
I was going to say the Rolling Stones.
Who's next?
Who's next? Tommy. Was such a great album.
Dark Side of the Moon.
Dark Side of the Moon. The Wall.
The Wall.
I just.
Led Zeppelin 4.
Yeah, go on and on.
Yeah,
I would go like Elton John, the Tumbleweed Connection, and Hunky Chateau, and Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player. All these, records. I'll give you Londonderry Sessions by Chuck Berry, or Aloha from Hawaii from Elvis. I loved Elvis's Christmas album.
Play it every year.
Every year, nonstop. All these great albums, and we had to only pick our 5. And I am going. This was a no-brainer for me at number 1. This song, whenever I think about my favorite music, my favorite anything, this album automatically pops in my head before anything else. And this is Elton John's "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road." There's so many great Elton albums. Captain Fantastic, which just came out 50 years ago yesterday. Those are probably his 2 most critically acclaimed albums, Captain Fantastic and "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road." But as I mentioned, Tumbleweed Connections is brilliant. All those great albums that he made from 1970 to 1975. But for me, the ultimate Elton John album is "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road." At a time when they put out albums where they only would put out one single, and maybe if it was a really big album, they'd throw another single out. "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road" had 4 top 10 hits with "Saturday Night Sorry for Fighting," "Benny and the Jets," "Candle in the Wind," and the title track. And then you have "Funeral for a Friend," "Love Lies Bleeding" that kicks the album off. Songs like "Harmony," which finishes the album, was a big, what they called a radio hit in New York City. Songs like "Your Sister Can't Twist But She Can Rock and Roll," and Roy Rogers and it just
about those ones.
Yes, and that's the thing about this album. I've seen that movie too. Is another great moody album, "Dirty Little Girl," a song that they couldn't probably release today. And that because of the lyrics. But I don't know. There was just something, when I was growing up. And I had only my brother and sister and my parents really to feed off of. And my folks loved, country music, and my mom loved Tom Jones and stuff like that. So that's the music that I heard, is Johnny Cash and stuff like that from my parents. And then my brother and sister would listen to, I got like Elvis and Jim Croce and Carly Simon. We had never mentioned women. Carly Simon's No Secrets album or Carole King's Tapestry, two other great albums.
Every song.
Right. When it comes to great albums,
Joni Mitchell, Blues.
Joni Mitchell. I mean, some great women that we want to tip our hat to. But for some reason, maybe almost similar to Kiss, where when I was a kid and Elton John had those big glasses and he was electrifying, and back in those days, there wasn't a YouTube and there wasn't there wasn't MTV. There wasn't. You couldn't just go anytime and just go on your phone and say, hey, I want to see a video of this. So he would come on TV maybe once or twice a year, and it was a special. It was like watching The Wizard of Oz. And I remember him being on Soul Train, and I remember there was a documentary called Elton John and Bernie Taupin Say Goodbye to Norma Jean, which was about the making of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. And I begged my mom, I was in probably like 4th grade, thought, please let me stay up till 9 o'clock to watch it and stuff, and she did, and it was always something special. It was like a superhero, and much like Kiss, with their makeup, was like a living comic book,
larger than life,
But then when you tear away the big glasses and the glam and the glitz and the high heel shoes, and it just comes down to the something about his voice and his piano style and the warmth I felt. I can just remember sitting up in my bedroom and the way they made albums in those days with the lyric sheets and it was such a great package.
The drawings and the double spread about the different songs.
Right, and all the artwork. I would just sit there.
The drawing for Dirty Little Girl was pretty risque.
It was at the time, right? And the great thing, you used Benny and the Jets had you knew what Benny looked like and that. So it was just great artwork. And I would just sit there and listen to every single song over and over and over again. And I'm just thankful that to be alive for all this music that we're talking about, that we were able to appreciate it. I think some of these albums get lost on the kids nowadays. I hate to say that. I sound like my old man. But you don't see people sit down and listen to albums the way they used to. Like from now, you can just people release albums and you can just download a song or two that you like. You don't have a lot of people don't listen to albums all the way through the way we did back in the day.
Holding the album, playing the album, reading the lyrics. It was more tactile experience, than I think it's been lost. But obviously I remember that. I remember sitting in this basement and listening to Goodbye. My older brother bought it and just listening to it over and over and over.
Oh, I think the greatest double album of all time, and again, Pinnacle. Elton's my favorite, and that was his all-time greatest album.
So if you notice here, something interesting. And
all old albums.
The 70s just dominate these lists, and I think that if you objectively,
some 80s and 90s. Or 80,
If you look objectively, though, the music of the 70s, just because of the variety, and when back then artists were allowed the freedom to put out what they wanted. It wasn't as formulaic or commercial as it is today. There's so much different stuff being produced. You could watch Don Kirshner's rock concert and see Joni Mitchell and then Kiss, right? And you had all this different kind of music.
Great music.
Great singer-songwriters, great rock and roll bands, great country music. It was just a decade that is just filled with so many good albums and so much music. It's really overwhelming.
And it's not to say that there's not great albums and great music being made today. You have to dig for it a little bit more.
Right. The great stuff was it was commercial back then, which is
right. And now, unfortunately, it's not. It's auto-tune. Right. But there are artists like Nathaniel Rateliff and the Avett Brothers, and you go out and you find these albums, and they bring me back to that time. So there are great artists out there still.
I want to give a quick plug if anyone wants to listen to a great new band called The Operators. They're out of Baltimore. Look them up. Great new band.
And I always say that all the time. Look up the Avetts and look up Nathaniel Rateliff. Yep. I think if you like classic rock, it's great.
You just got to dig a little bit.
That's right. Yeah. So, well, this was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
I really enjoyed it. I'm sorry I put you through this hell.
The only thing worse is if you forced me to think of my five favorite songs of all time.
Well, that's going to be our next special. That'll probably be the season finale. and that's going to be so hard.
There'll be 2 weeks of mental torture for that.
That's gonna be really hard to do. But we will do that before. I think that's what we will do as a show that'll end season 3, and before I go on a little hiatus before we start our Buffalo Bills stuff. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Hey,
we have a lot of fun doing this. We love it.
Feel free to write a comment down below the video about any of your favorite albums and music. So we'd love to see that. And again, give us a like and subscribe and hit the bell icon. And Tom, thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Love it.
We're going to go out drinking now. So have a good week. Next week will be the Beatles. And we'll see you next time. And have a good rest of your week, folks. Thanks, Tom.
Peace.